Dybala! He is something else. Di Lorenzo, and still Di Lorenzo! The captain brings the house down. Partenopea champions once again, but the 33-year wait will now officially come to an end.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your culture to go. I'm Frank Ravello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing on this Tuesday night? It doesn't feel like
Cold.
Tuesday because we had culture today, but Tuesday night.
Cold. Just so damn cold over here.
It's cold and snowing. If you would listen to the people in my area of the country, they tell you we'd have a blizzard, though we only had 4 inches. So
Yeah. I had my snowplow out 5 times last week. I had it out 5 times all last winter. So just to let you know, now the freezing cold. And then next week we're going to be back in the 30s and 40s where this foot of snow that's around me is going to melt. And now people are going to talk about flooding and all this other stuff. It's Wisconsin. So, you know, I've chosen to live here. So it's what it is. The chat is already lining up.
That's right.
So they all show up
today, I guess.
I think it's the notification. They all line up and they just start jumping in. So good to have you, Anthony, Apex, Vincent, Dominic, all in the chat. So, but yeah, good to have them. I'm sure more people will jump in and join us as well. So,
yeah.
If you don't mind, Richard, here, I actually would like to take a minute and dedicate this edition to Serie A Sit Down to a fallen acquaintance in the Wisconsin soccer scene. Tomislav Markovic passed away yesterday after a relapse of his pancreatic cancer. Tommy was a relatively visible figure in the Wisconsin soccer scene. Very good coach, good player. I've knew him over 30 years. Always had great conversations. He was somewhat of a Milan fan. In particular, was a big fan of the Croatian players that came through and played for Milan, just starting with Zvonimir Boban. So the man knew his history and knew his players, was a big Rebic fan, obviously, and had a fondness for the Croatian players that played in Serie A as well, and knew them well and tracked them. And, we had conversations about those guys pretty often. And, guys like that don't come around very often. So he'll be missed by those. He leaves behind a wife and a daughter, and a soccer club that he was very loyal and dedicated to, Croatian Eagle Soccer Club. Shout out to you guys, and to his family. I know that he is deeply missed right now. So, Tommy, rest easy. This one's for you.
Well said. Well said. Sad to hear.
Yep. Thank you. We move on. Today's episode, and it is 290, which means after this, Richard, we have 10 more. To 300.
10 more to 300. Moving
this
on
is
up.
Insane. How have we tolerated each other this long to do 300 podcasts? What if we stop it? What if we get pissed off at each other at 299? What'll happen?
That'd be the way to go. That'd be the way to go.
One short of 300, and they're all going to wonder what would have been. We would have left them. We would have left them all hanging, right?
Cliffhanger.
So that's gonna kind of fall right around my birthday, actually. So.
You're going to leave me on episode 300 to do by myself? Is that what it is?
Well, since my birthday is on a Monday this year, I think I could be available to do 300.
Right,
so,
right.
I might be a little hungover though.
Chat was getting ready to riot, so.
As well they should. So the marquee game of match week 20 was Milan and Roma. We're going to go over that one and break it down for you. We will discuss, as you do know today, if you unless you lived under a rock, Jose Mourinho and Roma have parted ways, and one of Roma's heroes, Daniele De Rossi, is taking over on a contract for the rest of the season. So we will tell you what we think about that as well. We'll get into the rest of match week 20. We're going to get into a conversation about who would you rather have, Adrian Rabiot or Hakan Çalhanoğlu. And we're going to have some pretty interesting ideas, as it pertains to that. We'll get into the Supercopa because the FIGC and Lega Serie A and all these people wanted an extra 11 million euros. So now 4 teams are participating in it instead of the traditional league winner and cup winner. And then we will finish with the world's most popular hashtag game, Who won Calcio Twitter? So let's not waste any of the chat's time. They're waiting patiently. Richard, let's get after it. Milan and Roma.
Milan, Roma. Yeah, first, this, of course, was a marquee game of the weekend. However, I think, it was just another game for me until, obviously, the events that didn't transpire this morning. You sent me a message about Mourinho out, and I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? So that surprised me. Obviously, this pushes the game into the forefront of everything. But yes, Milan hosting Roma in this one as a interesting game, absolutely, because obviously Mourinho sitting on the sidelines, not on the sidelines, but in the rafters because of his red card from last game. Looking at the lineup in this one, first for the home team, you had Mike Maignan in goal for Milan with the back four of Teo Hernandez, Gabbia, Chiar, and Calabria. Midfield five of Reinders, Adli, Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, and Rafa Leao, all led by 75-year-old Olivier Giroud. Thoughts on the lineup? Obviously, they're in the Milan camp and Milan Twitter. There's arguments about who should start at striker, but thoughts on overall lineup and the insertion of Adli, who's got some good minutes here in the last many games now.
Yeah, I like the lineup. I mean, I think that Pioli aligned this lineup with the mindset that it's Roma. Roma's going to let you have the ball. So put in players that are going to be comfortable possessing it in midfield, maybe having to deal with some physicality, but certainly guys that are going to be able to make good decisions, not give the ball away cheaply, not succumb to some of the pressure. So I thought, in particular with the midfield, this was an ideal lineup to send out.
I hope if I unmute myself. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it was a nice lineup overall. Curious to see how Reinders and Loftus-Cheek really come into their own as of late, especially Reinders. He's really become a focal point on this team, and at times, as smooth as he is out there, he kind of reminds you of Benacer in a way. And a couple times I had to double check myself, like, wait, that's Reinders, not Benacer. So yeah, good lineup for Milan. They're looking at the road team. In goals, Villar is getting the goal instead of Rui Patricio. They're going with a back three of Diego Llorente, Gianluca Mancini was the captain, and Christensen with a midfield five of Spinazzola on the left, Bove, Paredes, Cristante, and Celik on the right. And then up top you had Lukaku and Stefan El-Shaarawy. I had saw a graphic somewhere prior to this game that they were going to go with Tammy Abraham and Paulo Dybala, and I was like, wait, what's going on here? But I think it just been who they probably would have wished in an ideal situation. But thoughts on the starting 11 for Roma in this one? Good to have Spinazzola if you're a Roma fan. What he possesses skill-wise. He could bring a lot from bringing attacking depth that could attack the Calabria of the world and the Pulisic, the right hand side that Milan tend to be weak at. Thoughts on Roma starting 11?
It's a lineup that lacks creativity, but it also is a lineup that's understandable when you're away and you're going to go somewhere and you're just going to grind. Bove, if you're going to get any creativity from the midfield, it's going to come from Paredes. And it's going to come from relatively deeper positions. So the reliance is on getting it from the wingbacks, getting it from Spinazzola, getting it from Seki Celik. That's where it was going to come from. And then trying to play through Lukaku as a target, and with his physicality and with what he brings to the table, you could see a potential for a mismatch with him and Gabbia, in certain situations. Still not going with maybe the more creative player in Pellegrini from the start that could make you think about things a little bit. But here we are with Roma. This is pretty expected for the tactics they were going to set out to do. You're going away against the third best team in Serie A. You're going to start with a lineup that says, okay, we're going to soak as much as we can. We're going to absorb as much as we can. And then we'll try to figure out where we can make it happen with the creative players to either, to try to decide the match if we're in such a position.
You mentioned no Pellegrini to start. He would feature in this game, would have an impact on the game. But yeah, the game started with these lineups. I thought, like you mentioned, Roma set up to take a lot of the possession, give away the possession, soak up that pressure, and trying to hit them on the counterattack. And curious to see what Milan would do. Obviously, they like having the ball. They're one of those teams that do it like possession. But could they do anything with that possession? Some of the guys this season, in particular, Leao and Teo Hernandez, haven't really lived up to the expectations as of late. One of those really changed in this game. But the game started off, pretty hot and intense, and we got to go early, very early on, which was very unexpected for me, Frank. We had Yassine Adli being assisted by Reinders, which I thought was, had the double take there, because I was like, wait, was that Reinders? It was. And Adli did well, evades the first defender and takes a shot off quickly past Svilar. 1-0 lead. Good to see Adli get a goal in this one. Many fans have been clamoring for him for quite a while since he joined them from Ligue 1. And he seems now finally getting adapted to the league, or at least adapted to the team, and obviously getting goals here and many recent weeks here. So thoughts on the opening goal for Milan?
Well, clearly you're happy for Adli. It was a good finish. It was a composed finish. You started to see how things were going. I mean, I think that this was a product for how Milan were attacking Roma. Okay, and for there's a lot of people out there. There's the Piolia crowd that just will sit there and bemoan Milan and say that there's not an identity. Well, here's the identity, and it was clear as day, and it was on full display for you on Sunday. Okay, Milan are a possession-based team, and their objective, okay, is to try to get a numbers advantage on the flank. Okay, whether it's on the right or on the left-hand side, and you can kind of do this flow chart: possess the ball, establish a numerical advantage on the flank. Do you have the numerical advantage? Yes. Attack down that flank. No. Change the point of attack and change it through guys like Adli and Reinders. Okay. Yeah. So where and get it in a direction where if it's on the right and Roma's going to crowd the ball side, which is what they did, and they did it on this goal. Now you can swing it over. Layout was 1v1 a lot, and in this instance they didn't get it to him. They didn't have to. The open player was Adli, and he got the ball and he had the space to finish. So, but you saw that a lot. It's like, okay, and it's almost like Milan reeled Roma's shape, to one flank or the other, and then they had the players in position to reverse the ball to the other side of the pitch and have numerical advantages that they could exploit and attack. This was a bit of a product of it. The goal was a little more central in nature, obviously, but I mean, that's how Milan play, and that's how Milan have been playing all season long. So for those people that say that Milan have no identity when they have the ball, that's their identity. I just explained it for you. Go and watch them again. They're going to do the same thing.
Yeah, it seems to do the same thing. Rinse and repeat often, and they don't seem to deviate from that. But opening goal there would obviously make the game much more entertaining. You knew Roma would have to come out of their shell as a result of that goal. First half went on, and Roma really struggled to get any really quality chances off. Yeah. I thought Celik had a nice opportunity in the first half, forced Magnon to make a save. But outside of that, I mean, the really big highlight of the first half is Mancini getting a yellow card late in the first half. Milan did a good job. Though they weren't scoring a goal, they had a lot of possession, kept Roma pinned back, and didn't allow Roma to counterattack them as they would like to get those opportunities. So really, Roma struggled in the first half for me, Frank. I thought Milan looked comfortable. 1-0 is never truly comfortable, especially if you're a Milan fan out there. But I thought overall good performance from Milan in the first half, and keeping Lukaku at bay and company. What more could you want if you're a Milan fan? And Roma, you're struggling. I saw some people in the chat saying, "Hey, we want Belotti out there." Belotti for me also, I think, would have been better suited for this kind of game. Yes, he and Lukaku can both hold up the play very well and pass it off to their wingers, but Belotti is much more mobile than him. He's more useful on the flanks. He can drop in deeper and help out the team a little more. He contributes overall more so than Lukaku could, and at least in this kind of game. Yes, he'll be your bully, which he always will be, but it just seems that they were missing something, Roma were, and it was because he was mostly pocketed in that first half. What are your thoughts on the first half?
Surprisingly enough, Roma had more of the ball than Milan in the first half, and then that possession advantage carried slight. I mean, it was 50-50 in the second half, but Roma had more of the ball, and I think a lot of that was the product of Adli scoring early. Yep. Okay, so look at Roma. I thought Roma were extremely predictable in their approach to this game. Okay, everything was relied on the chances, being created by Zeki Celik and Leonardo Spinazzola on the flanks, okay? And if you go back and watch Milan, what did they do? They got in the box and they outnumbered the strikers. They outnumbered Lukaku. They outnumbered El Shaarawy. They basically let Zeki Celik and they let Spinazzola have the ball and say, have it and cross it all you want. We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there and we're gonna be first to it and we're gonna head it away, okay? It was a very railroad track, up and down, straight line approach from Roma. It was predictable. There was almost no variation to it. No. And it was very, very easy to defend. Just so overload the penalty area, make sure you have the numbers, and make sure crosses don't find the head of a Lukaku or an El Shaarawy or even a Bove trying to come into the box as well. And I think that Milan just saw that and said, okay, simple for us. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah. Lack of creativity by Roma forced a couple of changes. Obviously, Lorenzo Pellegrini comes into the match at halftime. Shortly after the interval, you would see the insertion of Belotti, a guy many people were clamoring for. But before that would happen, Milan would continue to do what they did much in the first half. And Pulisic
tighten it up. Our fact checker's here, just so you know. Ahmed's in the chat. He's
nice.
Our resident fact checker is here. So
I love it.
We got to make sure we're on our game.
We have to be held accountable. That's true. We have to be held accountable. So good to see Ahmed in the chat. But yeah, more of the same for Milan. I was saying, I thought in the first half, in particular, Pulisic did well to kind of insert himself as one of the main focal points for Milan in that first half, as well as Leao as he normally would. And in the second half, you would see both those players tag teaming up, and Pulisic with a nice cross into the box. Gets it back door to Simon Kjaer. Kjaer, instead of heading on goal, heads it back across into the traffic area. Olivier Giroud, what he always does, he's a poacher. He sits right in the box, puts it away. 2-0 at that point. Nice 2-goal lead for Milan. That's what they wanted at that point. They had to feel comfortable. Milanisti around the world had to be comfortable after getting a 2-0 lead. But big breakdowns in the Roma defense on that goal, Frank. 2-0 at that point.
Smart play. Just redirected to the second ball where Giroud is open. And that's the thing about Giroud. It's, you get the argument and said, oh, we can, Jovic, everything, things flow better through him. Well, they probably use him more in buildups, okay? They use Giroud in moments in the target play, but his primary responsibility is to get on the end of things and let the players behind him build it up, okay? You see the occasional target play from Giroud in counterattacking situations, but that's not his primary focus. His primary focus is to get on the end of things. His primary focus is to get into that penalty area. And if he doesn't have the finish that he lays it on, he's never going to take on anybody. Okay.
No.
And that's exactly a moment like that is exactly why you have Giroud in the game. 10 goals for Milan for the third straight season in Serie A. First to do it, and they said this on the broadcast. First to do it since Alexandre Pato. Yeah, it's been a while since we've had somebody that prolific to score 10 goals 3 seasons in a row.
Anthony says Jovic is not great at headers. That's why Giroud is a starter. Giroud is a big game player, and I think if you just played him in the big games, he'd still do well and get his goals. 10 goals in a season. Oli Lautaro Martinez has more goals and assist contributions this season than Giroud, which is an unbelievable statistic, honestly.
Yeah, for a guy that's almost 38.
Yeah, young guy, 38, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, 2-0 lead for Milan there. Milan had a chance, and Calabria had a chance to make it 3-0. Calabria misses a golden opportunity in the 68th minute or so. And what do the football gods tell you? You mess up on one end, you're going to pay for it on the other end. Literally, play goes down the pitch. Calabria gets a penalty, sticks his foot out, takes out Pellegrini, who just came into the game, get into the action right away. Calabria takes him down into the box. It was a penalty, stone cold penalty there for me. Calabria, lazy as can be on that play.
And he knew it. And he knew it when he did it.
He knew it.
Yeah.
You saw his reaction immediately, and they checked in as a penalty. Up steps Paredes. I thought it would be Pellegrini, but Paredes steps up, puts it away 2-1 at that point. Game on. Looked like we were going to have a good way to end this game. But, game played out. Milan seemed to get control back into this game. Again, we saw a nice attempt by Spinazzola in the second half that Magnon had to make a save. Outside of that, there weren't really any great clear-cut opportunities from Roma in this one. I thought they could have done more to put more in the attack, as Vincent said in the chat. Very simple attack at that point. Many people were clamoring for Giroud to come off the pitch, and we saw Leao come off the pitch. Musa comes on, as well as Okafor comes on. Milan doing a good play on the build-up there. All of a sudden, Teo gets the ball, feeds it to Giroud. Giroud with a unbelievable world-class backheel flick in perfect stride to Teo Hernandez, who one-times it. He thrashes the goal. A violent shot, as the announcer said. Puts it away. Easily goal of the week for me, Frank. But 3-1 at that point. Game, set, match. Thoughts on the goal and just the game in general?
Yeah, I mean, goal of the week, assist of the season, for me on that. And yeah, that was like the nastiest dunk you can do in a basketball game. That tail goal. Okay, great build up, great hold up play by Giroud, great run by Teo Hernandez. You come back to Calabria, a dumb foul, a player that's not even facing the goal. So all of that going on just to make it interesting enough for the Milan faithful who have had to sweat through these kind of things before. So I thought the substitution struck the right chord. There is somebody on Twitter that said Leao looked uninterested the whole game. I disagree with that.
I disagree with that too.
I thought Okafor had a nice burst to him. It looks like he's kind of getting that back a little bit too, which should serve Milan well in the long run. But I thought the substitutions were smart on Pioli's part here. Let's go look through those again real quick. You had Musa, you had Okafor coming out, Pulisic. So you basically brought Musa to. He's not going to do what Pulisic does. He's going to probably cover more.
Though Musa nearly had a worldly of a goal where he went around the whole team and nearly scored a hit off the post late in the game. So
and stoppage, absolutely. And you got the kids Zaroli in there, and then Jimenez got some run. They, not enough to make an impact, but there were some smart substitutions to just try to alter the shape, to just kind of take some things away. And it's a good win for Milan. It's an important win because it put them, I believe, now 9 points clear. 9 points clear of fifth.
9. Okay.
8 points clear of fourth. And they stay within. I mean, guys, it's not ridiculous to say that they are within touching distance of Inter and Juventus because there's still 18 games to go. Yes, it's still going to be difficult, but this team has solidified their position as one of the best teams in this league. And I'm just going to continue to harp on it. I think you have to give Pioli credit for the job he's done. Rash of injuries, didn't panic, regrouped, got some guys to buy into playing out of position, Teo Hernandez chief among them for a few games, and got them in this position where they're sitting in third. Great overall performance. If you want to really nitpick, they probably left 2 or 3 goals out there, and they really could have battered Roma here in this game. But 3-1 ends up being the result, and one that Milan fans should be happy with, and I think one that's representative of the quality of their team.
I think for the most part of the season, we've been saying that Milan is clearly the third best team in this league. Obviously, Juve and Inter are a class above, but I think no one's been as consistent or as quality as Milan have. When Milan have been on, they've looked very, very good. Obviously, they have their off games, and nothing comes to the forefront like the derby. However, they've brought it in week out. Injuries notwithstanding, they find ways to get the results. On the flip side, Roma, again, this is 5-6 games down the road that had horrible results. Another big game where they faltered. They lost recently in the Derby della Capitale. Just not getting results one after the other. Obviously, Mourinho is not going to be happy after this game. But I think, overall, you look at how the game was shaped out, and, Vincent said it, it's very simple from Roma. They really didn't try to change anything. They really didn't try to attack as much as we've seen them do. Yes, they're missing some key players, but, still, you got to find ways to attack and adjust as a team. And, one of the papers said that, hey, it's an archaic dinosaur that, is leading the way, and they're talking about Mourinho, and he's got to find new ways to attack this team. But overall, they didn't have it together. And I don't know if Svilar was the right call. I don't know if I don't know what Rio Patricio was injured or got a yellow card accumulation or why he didn't play. But I wasn't too impressed by Svilar. I thought Milan should have had more goals for certain, but I don't think as a result of the goalkeeper. I just think they just missed their opportunities, like the Calabria missed just before he got the penalty. So, overall good game, and Roma have some soul searching to do here, especially after it always sucks to lose in the derby, but then now you go and lose a big game to Milan, and now you're trying to start over with a new manager, So it's life is a little difficult at the moment. What, 9th position now? Just a few weeks ago we were talking about Lazio being in 9th place, and so how the world flips ever so quickly in just a matter of weeks.
Yeah, which segues us to this next time Jose Mourinho out at Roma. It's, we talked a couple weeks ago trying to maybe justify Mourinho at Roma and talking about how some of the comments that he'll make in the press, some of the things that he'll play. I think that his intentions are, on the surface, it's ego, and that's what a lot of people are going to think. But at the same time, it's his way of trying to deflect the attention from the players and putting the pressure on him. Just at the end of the day, I think the Roma ownership just got tired of the act. Okay, I think that it was Mourinho's decision, wrong decision to sack mid-season. Okay, and look, we're seeing firsthand the perils of a top team sacking their manager early or middle of the season with what's going on at Napoli.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to now find out if this is good or if this is a detriment to Roma. History suggests this is going to be a detriment. But I think it just finally, ownership just got tired of the act.
I think so.
They got tired of that representing their club. And it was time. They felt for the long-term health of Roma, there was time to go in a different direction. And I don't disagree with them. I don't disagree with them at all. We've seen Mourinho's act wear thin at a lot of different other stops. And I think that a fresh set of ideas needs to come in, because I personally believe that this is a top 4 talented squad. Okay, in terms of talent.
Oh yeah, sure.
In terms of performances, it certainly hasn't lived up. And then the other thing that I'll add to this is, this is kind of my editorial on Mourinho. When things were adverse, when things were down, what did Mourinho do? Made excuses. Okay?
That's
blamed not having money. This or that or the other thing. Okay? Milan have had their just comparing it, and I bring it back to Pioli. Did you ever see Pioli once complaining, hey, I've got too many injuries. I don't know. I can't field the team that I want to field. Going publicly and saying, I don't have the money that I want to spend. We can't do this. We can't do that. No.
Maldini did.
Maldini did. And and I think that's probably a common theme right now among owners, especially American owners of these Serie A clubs. They don't want whiners in their offices. There might be something to that. But, where Mourinho's making excuses, Pioli's trying to solve the problem. Okay? Inzaghi will try to solve the problem. He'll have his occasional grumbling here and there. But Milan, talking about Antonio Conte for next season, you're going to get an excuse maker, kind of like what Roma's got with Mourinho. And I think that, like I said, the act just got thin, and the Friedkin group just got tired of it.
As Mr. Bob Lex says, it's that third season syndrome with Mourinho. It happens everywhere. Can't stop it from happening, apparently. But, I kind of am in agreement with Vincent saying how mid-season sacking, I didn't see this one coming. I knew the antics were getting old, but I thought he did well in his time at Roma. Obviously, they had won a trophy in, 14 years or something like that. And he brought them, won a trophy, right, the Conference League, and then got to a final the very next year. With a team, yes, they spent a lot of money. Now, you can blame him because he selected those players that they bought. But, again, it wasn't that great of a team. They had, obviously, Paulo Dybala and some other players that they got. But, he kind of found a way to make it. What we found out, too, is Mourinho, as we all knew, is a cup manager. He knows how to win in the cups all the time. I think the problem lied with him is that he tried to turn every Serie A game into a cup game, and it's not going to get results there. It's very static. It's very poor to watch. And so while he did bring a trophy, and it has to be applauded what he did there in European action, made Roma talked about again in European circles. You look at some of the statistics, and this is from Optapalo. It says Jose Mourinho was in charge of Roma for 96 games, 44 wins, 23 draws, 29 losses, recording an average of 1.61 points per game, which is the lowest among the coaches with 50-plus matches with the Giallorossi in the three-point era. So not very attractive football. And another damning statistic for him, we just talked about a couple minutes ago, Derby della Capitale. What has been his record, not mind you just the top 6 teams in the league, but just against Lazio, who Romans and Laziale fans, they go head-to-head. This is what they kind of live and die with, right? So same thing with Milan and Inter with their head-to-heads. 1 win in 6 matches. That's not going to get it done in the capital. So, you know, a lot of things were going against him. His antics, obviously, like you mentioned, the American owners felt that they were spending good enough money to make a good product on the field. That it wasn't happening according to their eyes. And with the antics, it's just one after the other. And they said, you know what, we're going to cut set ways. I'm sure there's some severance pay, but they didn't really care at this point. Maybe they felt the red card accumulations and all those antics post and pre-match were enough for them. And so they move on from them and go with a legend for the club legend for them. It's an interesting decision for Roma. We mentioned this with Napoli before. Doesn't always end well. At least in this regards, they go with a club legend, someone who, someone mentioned on Twitter how the players should take notice, because if you act up, kind of like Rino Gattuso, he's probably going to break your leg. So you have to be careful, mind your P's and Q's with Daniele De Rossi. But yeah, for Mourinho, his tenure ends abruptly. I thought he'd make it to his 3rd season, but it didn't happen. And being a 9th in the table with the records against some of the top teams in the league, though it has improved, it just wasn't good enough ultimately for the Roma owners, and here we are.
It's going to be interesting to see how Daniele De Rossi manages this Roma team. And I saw the reference from someone in the chat saying that he got Spal relegated to Serie C. As Renato Sanchez not been playing because of injury or form.
I think it's form.
I think it's form.
Vince can tell us that, but...
Yep. You know, you're talking about the coaches that never complain. Yeah, I mean, Vincent brought up Italiano, a coach that he likes because he never complains. You know, you had, Thiago Motta was chirping for a little bit there at Bologna at the very beginning of the season, but then, then he kind of calmed down a little bit. You don't hear much from Allegri anymore either. I mean, in terms of, when it comes to that. I think earlier in his career, you probably heard a little bit more, but you don't seem to hear much from him there. I could be wrong. And you don't hear Sarri doing a whole lot of complaining either, or making excuses or this or that when you go to the papers. Gasperini will do it. But Gasperini also will solve his problems too. Yeah. So that's that. At least he does something about. He'll chirp a little bit, but then he'll go and do something about it and try to solve his problems. So Saudi is too busy smoking to complain. Yes.
Yeah. Like that. I like the comment from Vincent, though. He says, very bold move by the owners, because if De Rossi doesn't work out, the fans will turn against the owners, not De Rossi. We saw this firsthand at Milan, where they put both Inzaghi and Seedorf in there. Nobody turned on those two players. They just said, it's the owner's fault, and it was the owner's fault. So, yeah, very fair point there.
Yep, agreed. I hate this because I picked Roma to finish 4th.
Yeah, and I picked Lazio, and they're not moving back into the top 4. So
was trying to die on that hill. And I'm going to die on that hill.
You are.
And now I'm trying to drag. It's like I'm trying to drag this carcass that has like an inch of its life left over the line, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to die before I can get it to cross.
Would you agree that De Rossi's impact will have to be a motivational one, as we kind of saw in the practice today? He's going to be more trying to get his guys. It's very similar to Gattuso. I can't say I know full what De Rossi's tactics will be and what he's done in the past with the youth teams. But what we saw from Gattuso was more motivational, typical player, ex-player type, rah-rah, get the guys motivated, and then try to keep it simple, clean up some of the defensive mistakes that they have, and then hopefully what the fans want, the owners want, more attacking prowess from the team, and try to make it more fun game to watch, not just a park the bus mentality, which we've been accustomed to over the last 3 seasons.
He's got to inspire these guys. If he's going to have any chance of being successful here the rest of the season, he's got to inspire them. But he's also got to give them some freedom to play. And that he can't make it all about him. He's got to make it all about the players. And I think he'll do that. Because he's got no other choice. He's inheriting a situation mid-season where he's not going to have anything to work with. I think it's going to be an 18-game stretch plus Europa League games of, all right, let's play. Let's find where the strengths are. Let's give you guys some freedom to do things. Let's try to see if we can change this around a little bit and come up with something that everybody's going to buy into and believe in pretty quickly to try to turn around the season. So we'll see if he's successful. History suggests that he probably won't be. But you were going to say something.
No, I think the biggest change we'll see from Roma, at least from our on-the-field product, will not be in Serie A. It'll be in Europa League. And I think that's where you'll see the vast differences between the experience that Mourinho brought versus what De Rossi brings, and which is only just his game experience. And so I imagine that's where we're going to see the biggest changes, and maybe I hate to say it's an earlier exit for Roma than anticipated. At Serie A, I think they should be able to hold their own, especially, if he's able to motivate them to play to their level. Maybe he has a renewed focus on focusing on Dybala and Pellegrini and maybe some of these youngsters. And maybe Belotti gets more of insertion here instead of Lukaku. I don't know. Well, curious to see how his first few games go up. But interesting times here if you're a Roman fan or not. Just to see what De Rossi can bring to the team. And we've seen many ex-players do well. Mota, Gilardino at Genoa, just to name a few. Interesting times for sure. I'm gonna have to watch this next game just to see if there's any kind of change from that. And I don't imagine a great change on the on-field product for sure, because I think they're gonna try to keep it simple and just try to add some of the influences that De Rossi and the Free kids want to see.
And it's not like they're in dire straits here, in terms of league form. They're only 5 points out of fourth. Yeah. So it's gettable for them. It's just really up to whether it really comes down to whether or not they can go ahead and, and pull it off. So, Again, I don't think history's on their side when you're talking about midseason changes like this, because we've exhausted this pretty extensively. We're seeing it failing at Napoli at a pretty ridiculous level. We may see it fail here at Roma. So we'll see.
The craziest thing about now, not only getting a text from you saying that Mourinho's fired, but I think that EDF and Mazzarri both outlasted Mourinho this season. Sarri outlasted him. Pioli's outlasted him. It's just it's funny how these things change, and owners can really set things off. How many times have we seen the Palermo managers in the past fire their managers one after the other? Same thing with some of these other teams like Udinese in the past. So it's interesting times.
I thought for sure. I watched that Atalanta Frosinone game yesterday, and I thought for sure, this is EDF's last game for sure.
They've inspired in the last two games. My goodness.
Yep. But here they are. Here we are. We'll see if Dionisi is still got a job too at Sassuolo after the 3-0 loss to Juventus. But I think that's a good segue to get in and talk about the rest of the games that went on in Serie A. So why don't we move in that direction, Richard? It all started off with Genoa. I'm actually going to do this because it's faster if I do it through my phone. All right. Bear with me just a second. Okay, Genoa and Torino. That game finished goalless. Vanja Milinkovic-Savic with a goalkeeping masterclass in this game. That's pretty much the most you need to know. He had 6 saves. Genoa pretty much all over Torino in this game and just couldn't finish. Napoli needed a 96th minute winner from Akmir Rahmani to beat Salernitana 2-1. That is now 5 dropped points for Salernitana against Napoli, Juventus, and Milan. They had Milan beaten, settled for a draw. They had draws going in at the death against Juventus and Napoli, ended up losing those games. They had the lead in all of these games. And these are right now the fine margins for Salernitana and why they're at the bottom. I want to talk about them in a little bit, but let's get to the rest of the scores here, Richard. Hellas Verona and Empoli. It was a 2-1 win for Hellas Verona. Milan Djuric in the 3rd minute. Cyril Ngonja playing his last game as a Verona player. He is headed to Napoli for $19 million. We'll talk about that here a little bit too. From Suat Serdar, one of your Schalke boys there. I didn't realize he went to Verona. There you go. Simon Zerkovsky, he just came over from Spezia on loan, and he makes his presence felt at Empoli, scoring a goal. So he's already got one more goal than about more than half of Empoli's roster. So nonetheless, a 2-1 win. And then Inter doing what Inter does. They go to Monza. They hammer him 5-1. Hakan Çalhanoğlu with a penalty in the 12th. Lautaro Martinez continuing his torrid campaign in the 14th. 2-0 at halftime. Çalhanoğlu again on the hour. And then Matteo Pessina would get a penalty in the 69th. Lautaro Martinez braces in the 84th through a penalty. Marcus Thuram gets his goal in the 88th. Inter flying. Absolutely hammered Monza. Raffaele Palladino didn't like the referee too much. Said something about his mother, got sent to the stands. So that is what you need to know about those games. Moving on to Sunday's action. If you woke up early in the morning, you saw Lazio take care of Lecce by a 1-0. Felipe Anderson with the goal in the 58th minute. Another win for Lazio. They just can't stop losing. Or they can't stop winning, I'm sorry. Tell you what, who can't stop losing is Bologna. And they're now all of a sudden in a free fall, and this time it is defeat to Cagliari. Orsolini goal in the 24th minute. Andrea Petagna levels it in the 31st, and then it was a Riccardo Calafiori own goal in the 69th minute. 64% possession for Bologna in this game, 11 shots. Certainly had all of their chances to get something out of this. Another team dropping points, Fiorentina. 2-2 with Udinese. Entertaining game here, this. In the 10th minute, Sandi Lovric with a goal provided by a You Better Know Them player, Lorenzo Luca, in the 10th minute. That gave Udinese a 1-0 lead at halftime. Second half, Lucas Beltran in the 55th from Faraone. Faraone just coming right over from Verona and providing assists. He came on at halftime for Michael Coyote, so it just might be the right back position at Fiorentina. We'll have to see. Florian Tovan in the 73rd puts Udinese ahead. Sandi Lovric this time provider, but it was an Mbala Nzola penalty in the 87th minute to spare the blushes somewhat for La Viola. Fiorentina had a lot of the ball. Udinese didn't have a lot of the ball, but they certainly created their chances. On Monday, Atalanta were doing Atalanta things. Violated Frosinone, basically. 5-0 the final. Tuin Koopmeiners continues his good form through a penalty in the 8th minute. Ederson in the 13th. On the end of a Ruggieri cross. Ruggieri doesn't get credit for the assist because it was deflected. And Charles De Ketelare with a goal of the week candidate in the 14th minute. Blasted one from Martin de Roon. And then in the 83rd minute, Davide Zappacosta from Mario Pasalic. And then Emil Holm closing it out with a 5th goal, making it 5-0 to La Dea. And then today, we had a Serie A game on Tuesday. Juventus 3, Sassuolo 0. It was all the Dusan Vlahovic in this one. 2 great goals. First on a wonderful curler after being assisted by Fabio Moretti, and then a beautiful free kick in the 37th minute. Both of these will be on our goal of the week list. And for good measure, in the 89th minute, Federico Chiesa closing it out in the 89th. A significant win. Juventus all of a sudden scoring. Lots to talk about, Richard. Juventus scoring goals all of a sudden. Salernitana just coming painfully close, to maybe being in survival at this point. Plenty of other things to talk about. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with Monza Inter, not so much because of the game. I'll get to the game, but thanks to Ollie for bringing it to our attention. Apparently, there's 2 Inter players getting sued, and reading from it, I guess there's an article. Arnautovic is one of the guilty culprits. It's another player as well. Apparently, they dragged someone out of a nightclub and forced them to unlock their phones. I guess they took pictures or videos of something they didn't want to see or publicize. So they're getting sued now, which is hilarious. Typical Inter, I guess, and people aren't surprised that Arnautovic is one of the guys. But then moving on to the on-the-field product, Inter, dismantling an opponent like Monza. A little bit, the wheels have been coming off of them, very similar to Bologna as of late. All their key players are not producing at the rate that they were before. Inter have just been, very steady. They're very good at what they do. They're good players in every position. Hakan again just has his blueprints all over this game. I thought Mkhitaryan had a good performance as well. Lautaro doing everything he could. Thuram was hungry for a goal from minute 1 to minute 90, trying to get his goal. He finally got it late in the game. As hungry as he was still being very unselfish with the ball, which is you love to see as a striker. But overall, I thought Inter solid performance from back to front. They dominate that game 5-1. But I think for me the headlines of Inter, I gotta have to say those 2 players and getting sued. Pazza Inter are back, I guess. Frank.
They're bored. They're bored.
They're too good. They're like, we got to do something. We see goalkeepers when they get bored, they just come out and play. They play out in the field. But I guess you want to just go beat up people in the nightclub. I guess. Why are you in a nightclub anyway, right?
Exactly.
How old is Arnautovic? He's in the 30s. Come on, nobody goes to the clubs in their 30s.
Speak for yourself. Well, I got married at 33. I got married at 33, so like my early 30s. But so.
You want me to keep going, or you want me?
Yeah, go. Salernitana, because they're bottom, but man,
Yeah.
I mean, there's 4 drop points. They'd be on 16, they'd be in 19th place, and they'd be in a much better position. I mean, that's just going to be the fine details as to why they don't survive. Just not holding these. I mean, I think people Inzaghi has got these guys playing better. There's an identity. There's a buying in. And I think you got to give people some credit here, because I think people has had a reputation for absolutely ruining teams when he gets them. Certainly, he'll get them promoted from Serie B and they come to Serie A, and he can't manage his way out of a wet paper bag. But I have to give him a little respect. He's gotten them close and against good teams. I mean, Milan, Napoli, Juventus. I mean, is this a morale killer that they had their chances against really good teams, or is this hey, the performances are there, we're almost getting the points that we need, it's coming, keep believing in what you're doing? For Salernitana's sake, because I think the ability and the talent is there, I want to believe that the latter is very possible. I
do too, but I think if you have like Hellas and Udinese continue picking up points, then it's eventually going to become a buzzkill, and something's going to happen if you want to survive in this league. As they've been so close, they have some good players. I mean, Kadrev's having one of the best seasons of his career. Ochoa's a fantastic player. And obviously, you've got players like Buladia, and now they got Simi out there. They can't seem to put things together. They seem so close, and then they always blow it at the end. I agree with you. I think what people is doing over there, it's starting to come around, but like, how much patience do you have as an owner, especially when staying in the league is a matter of importance for them? Eventually, you're going to have to sever ties, and I think you have to look around the Valentine's Day, somewhere in that mid to late February. Like, if you don't start picking up points and getting back into a position where you can at least fight for escaping a relegation. And we might be seeing another move here with people Zaghi being gone, but it's got to be. You hung in there with one of the top teams, just couldn't get it done. You got to find a way to lock up shop. If you got to park the bus, whatever you got to do, you got a fantastic keeper. Or at least help him out something. Give him a chance to keep you in the game. And they're just basically leave the door wide open for, hey, we got a goalkeeper. We don't need to play defense. Like, no, don't do that. No, he can only do so much, right? And so I think Salernitana, it's getting closer, but can they ever get over the line? I don't know. I don't know, Frank. I don't know.
Hosting Genoa.
Okay.
Hosting Roma. At Torino. Hosting Empoli. That's their next 4 before they go to Inter.
Okay. Doable.
I can see at least a couple wins out of there with the way they're playing. They've just got to find a way to finish these games. If they can do that, that's going to fuel the belief. I think you can just go to Inter and punt that game because none of the relegation strugglers are going to go to Inter and take points. Okay, and then they get Monza at home after that, and then they go to Udinese, and then they go to Cagliari. So they're going to have some games coming up here and then hosting Lecce. So they're going to have some games coming up here where they're going to have a chance for themselves. I'll tell you the 3, because I can easily give you 3 teams that I think they can outlast here, and as I'm trying to build a case for Salernitana getting out of this mess.
Okay.
Empoli, Hellas Verona, and Frosinone. I think this downward spiral with Frosinone is legit. I don't think they're picking themselves back up. I think they've kind of been figured out by the teams in this league, and I don't think it gets any better for them.
Yeah.
And I think Verona, with unloading a lot of players, I think that's going to, here in this January window. And then Empoli just can't score. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs that you need to bring a guy in over from Spezia to come in and score a goal for you. And Spezia are 19th, and Spezia are 19th in Serie B.
Yeah, not good. No.
So.
No, I think Frosinone are coming back to reality very, very quickly. They've struggled. Bologna is coming to reality as well, but I think Frosinone is just off a cliff here, and Udinese and Cagliari are finding ways to get points. Albeit one point most of the time. Sometimes get 3 like Cagliari had this weekend, but Frosinone need to figure something out, and I think Hellas is also starting to find, they're picking up points here and there. It's like they lose, get a win, then lose. They're finding ways to get some points, but Salernitana have to put a string together to kind of catch back up the pack, and only 5 points back of Hellas. And there is a chance, like you said, I think Frosinone certainly need to be in the mix for this, and EDF's days are ticking away. It's like Peter Pan with that alligator or the crocodile with the clock in his mouth. You can hear the ticking getting louder and louder with the EDF. Yep. So it's going to happen in a matter of time. But I think they're coming back to reality. It's good for anyone above them, right? The Sassuolo, Lecces, Genoas of the world. And I really like this Genoa team. But go back to Frosinone, they're falling quickly. And they got some good players. They just can't stop. They've given up 8 goals in the last 2 games, and the game before that they gave up a lot of goals. It's been putrid from them. And so if you're watching these last 2 games, you would have thought they were the worst team in the league versus Salernitana. Salernitana at least are in games. They just can't get over that line. So it's interesting results there. Look at some of these other games. Lazio, you mentioned Lazio continuing to find ways to win. They're getting results, slowly getting back in there. They're 5th in the table or something like that. They're up there. They're
6th. They got the same goal difference as Atalanta. I think Atalanta on goals scored is
1 point out of the Champions League too. That's.
Oh no, they're not. No gold. I'm sorry. I'm reading this wrong. Ahmed, don't fact check me. I've got it right here. Atalanta's at +14. Lazio's at +4. I just kind of had a near 50 moment right there. So sorry about that. So Atalanta's ahead on goal difference, but they both have 33 points.
And I think the interesting thing with Lazio is we mentioned this before, and we're going to beat a dead horse, but they find ways. They seem to play better without Ciro Immobile. They put in Felipe Anderson in that false 9 position. I thought Isaacson was very impressive, even though he didn't get any goals. He's very slick on the ball. He's nice to watch. He's just so smooth, not making players left and right. Obviously having Zaccagni there, and good to have Luis Alberto back in the lineup. They find ways to get done. It isn't always pretty, but they get the results. It's very Juve-esque in a way lately. Their defense has been holding up. So, Lazio just quietly getting back into the mix. It was just about a month ago that we said that they were 9th place and there's no chance they're coming back in Europe. And now they're 1 point out of Champions League, which is an unreal run. It also kind of says what the rest of it seems like nobody wants that last Champions League spot. Everyone's doing what they can. It's the top 3 are starting to pull away, and everyone else is just finding ways to lose that 4th spot. Atalanta, though, have been very impressive. You talked about the game. They won 5-0 against Frosinone. Yes, it's Frosinone, but they're so versatile. They got so many players that are doing things, and what's his name? Dom, that new kid, on right back, he seems to be playing really well for them, at least in this game. And again, it's Frosinone. It's a sample size, but CDK... Another goal, fantastic goal by him. You got Koopmeiners obviously leading the way. Ederson, he's getting goals and still does his defensive duties. De Roon plays wherever they need him to play. He plays center back one week, plays midfield the next week. He does it all also for them. So Atalanta, you would think they'd be the odds-on favorite to get that last Champions League spot based on the teams that are around them. But, don't just get Lazio and the slow, methodical pace that they're going. They know it's a marathon. That's what they're hedging their bets on. Can they get further than 4? I doubt it, but if top 4 is still a good way to run, and I picked them 2nd this year, but they're not going to get that. But they could get Champions League, and they're right at the doorstep. Agreed.
I'm not worried about the UCL restart, Ollie, because they're going to play Bayern and they're going to get battered. And they're going to go right. They're going to go right out of that competition. So, and I think the Supercoppa is the other one that Lazio's in because they're out of the. No, I'm sorry, they're in the Coppa Italia too, so they're still in that and. So they're in the semifinals of that. So yeah, we'll see. But it's promising. I think to be able to, have some variety in what they do and not have to be dependent on Immobile. I think they're figuring that out. And and it's Sadi, another guy, not going to complain about the situation, not going to make excuses about the situation. He's just going to go in and solve the problem. And the managers that go in and try to solve the problem are getting results and still have a job. So. Yeah. That's a theme that we've kind of been talking about all night, but it is true. So
I'm curious if Mazzarri is going to find a way to turn things around. There are some couple transfer moves that have happened, not many, but one that the player that we've talked about for a couple seasons now, who's on the player you should know list, and that's Cyril Ngonge. Finally, he's going to be escaping that Hellas Verona pit and is going to Napoli. This is I think we both agree
That
this is
is
a fantastic
a
signing
pin-perfect signing. That is
for both the player and the
Ngonge-
team. Perfect.
And
fit,
Ngonge could not have gotten to a better situation. I think the system suits him. I think the players around him suit him. This guy was productive on a bad team. I mean, we were just, who did we talk about going into last season that was productive on bad teams, a bad national team, and now he's going to go to a team where he's got players around him. Kvaratskhelia. Now, we're not, pump the brakes. We're not saying Ngonge is going to be.
We're just saying. We're just saying.
Ahmed, calm down. All right, don't start getting happy. Don't start getting twitchy, my man. All right, but we think that this is we talked about it. We thought Napoli, Fiorentina were probably two of the ideal destinations for him if he moved on from Verona and stayed in Serie A. So we couldn't be happier, and we're excited about seeing what he's going to be able to accomplish. Now that he's in a good team, he probably begins by giving cover for Politano on the right-hand side. That's still Politano's job, especially on the strength of the way he's played this season. Yeah. But boy, what a guy because he can create, he can score, he can take you on. I'm eager to see what he contributes when he gets his opportunity at Napoli.
I'm curious what Eric's thoughts are on the signing of Ngonge, but I think eventually Ngonge is going to be the guy to supplant Politano. As good as Politano's having a fantastic season, doesn't mean you can't use Politano in the starting 11. I think he can certainly play behind Osimhen or Simeone or Raspadori, whoever's the striker of the week, your flavor of the week. Politano still has a place in this team. This gives Mazzarri another option, but Cyril Ngonge seems to, if he can get it done on a bad team like Hellas Verona, he can get it done with Napoli. Now he's got players around him. It gives Napoli even more of a threat on both wings. You mentioned how about Kvaratskhelia on the left side and now Ngonge on the right. Politano at times is that guy, but he doesn't bring it consistently. He likes to slow the pace down, change his pace around, so he's more suited probably in the middle of the field. Whereas Ngonge likes to go all the time, and so he'd be a great complement to Kvaratskhelia to really widen the teams that Napoli go against, and then that'll just open it up for Osimhen and whoever else is in the middle, Politano, Raspadori, whomever, that they can really feast in the middle. So I like what it does for the attack for Napoli. You've seen with Mazzarri lately, he's using a little bit more players. Demi got a good amount of play in this game this weekend, and so if he can steady the ship and then allow them to get their feet back underneath them, maybe Napoli can make a surge back into the European conversation and maybe even Champions League. But baby steps. I think the signing by Ngonge is fantastic, and I couldn't be happy for Ngonge because I think we both want to see what this player can really do on a good team. Some players, hey, we'll tell you right up front. Some players are only good on bad teams, and when they go to the limelight, they struggle, right? Marco Borriello is a big player who always scored goals for the Cagliari. He's a roll 15, 16, 18 goals in the season, then goes to a big club and then struggles. And he's not the only one. So I'm hoping Ngonge can really flourish in Napoli, and we really get to see the type of player that he is with all the skill set that he brings and the vision. So I'm excited. I don't support Napoli by any stretch, but I'm excited to see what Ngonge can do.
Napoli fans, we're telling you, get excited about this one. You're going to like him. Really good business. So Eric didn't even know they signed him.
Surprise!
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's why you come to us, Eric. We give you the knowledge.
That's right.
So yes, Alessandro Buongiorno possibly to Milan. I like the get. I question can he? I mean, and he showed that he can do. He can play in a two-man central defense because he showed it for Italy against Ukraine.
Yep.
He had some nervy moments at the beginning of that game, but then he went on and he put in a pretty assured performance. Played really well.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be much needed help at that position. Milan have had a litany of injuries at the center back position. They had to recall Gabbia early from loan. They've had to have Teo deputized. Chiar is not at a point in his career where he can play every 3 days because that's going to start coming up. So I think this is a shrewd move by Milan, a really good move. And probably good for the profile. I mean, I think the one thing that you probably looked at when you're, talking about Milan under Cardinale, is that after all of the transfers and all the different moves were made, is that suddenly this isn't an Italian Milan anymore with just Calabria and Firenze in your, pretty much in your first team rotation.
It's a very French team.
It's the French connection, yeah.
Add Adley to the mix now.
Well, with what France is pumping out right now for talent, I mean, you can't blame them.
No.
So this helps. I wouldn't want to say that this, because it's certainly not a marketing, but if it happens, it's a big need for Milan and a budding young star as a defender.
Yeah, if this is Berlusconi under ownership, they would buy him for 75 million, no doubt.
Yep.
A player like his caliber. I think Buongiorno has showed that, one, he's capable, he has the skill set. We saw in that game for the Azzurri where he started out, struggled, and a lot of players who struggle at the beginning of a game, it'll compound and get worse and worse, and he got stronger and eventually became one of the better players on that pitch by the end of the game. We saw just a prime example this weekend where he was involved in many. He's very good in the air. He's good defensively. He's good at marking. Very smart player. Has good amount of pace for his size. And so, yeah, I think it'd be a good signing. Eventually, like they mentioned, could be a replacement for Chiar. It would be a nice problem to have if you're Pioli to choose between the plethora of center backs that they have whenever they become all healthy again. Who's to say they'll all be healthy again at the same time? But Milan will have a good amount of center backs at that point that they can rely upon and rotate heavily as they want. I mean, Kalulu is still a center back as well, and he's, 5'5" or whatever his height is. So if it happens, I like it. I don't know if I like it at the expense of Colombo, because I think he is going to be an eventual nice Italian number 9, and nice to have, especially for Milan. But sometimes, to get a good player, you have to get a good prospect, right? And so, that's probably.
But is he though? I mean, because he's had loan spells, and he's had loan spells at Serie A teams, and he's having a hard time breaking into those teams.
I mean, Cotrone was the same way, right? We had all this hope for him that he'd become the next guy, and he never kind of panned out. So maybe you're right.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's that's just my counter argument to that. The only other noteworthy thing, it looks like Politano is going to extend his contract with Napoli through 2027, so good for him.
Yeah.
And then it looks like Napoli are going to loan out a few players. Gianluca Gaetano could be headed to Empoli. Alessandro Zanoli could be headed to Salernitana on loan. And I believe Zerbin is going to possibly go on loan as well. Makes sense. You got to move these guys. You're making room for Ngonja, and it looks like these guys aren't in Mazzarri's plans, at least for the short term. Another loan possibility that I think would be a good fit that looks like is going to happen. Michel Bakker, who has been at Atalanta and is having a hard time getting time there, appears headed to Monza on loan, and Monza could use some help at the wingback position.
Look at us talking about all this Napoli news, and Serious Sit Down, you're home for all your Napoli news right here in the transfer. That's what we're here for. But no, yeah, it's a good point. Napoli making moves as you expect them to be, especially struggling here in this title defense this season. Before we, any other big signings we need to talk about before we get to the next talking point?
I think that covers it. I know that there's possible talk that Mehdi Taremi could be joining Inter in summer. Sure. Might have something to do with Inter. Might not be as impressed with Arnautovic on and now off the pitch as they initially probably thought. So they're probably looking to make that replacement. And then Juventus has got according to reports, Juventus has got their eye on Albert Gudmundsson. All of this stuff that we're getting, we're not making this up. We're not, we don't have our ears to the ground or anything like that. We follow Nicola Schira on Twitter. So check him out, and we might as well give him a shout out at Nico Schira, Nico. Calm down, Ahmed. NICOSCHIRA. So that's give him a follow at his site there. You'll get an awful lot more Serie A transfer talk there, which has been helpful for us. So.
Yes, very well done, and yeah, definitely follow Nico Schira amongst the many other reporters out there reporting the news. But Nico seems to be the guy who seems to be the most accurate. It seems like. I do want to get to a talking point that I kind of saw over Twitter over the weekend. It was, who is better? Is it Rabiot or is it Hakan? And this is obviously between two fan bases in particular. But Rabiot having a fantastic season. Really, last 2-3 seasons he's been really good. Hakan obviously in this new regista role that Inzaghi's got him playing under. he's been excelling in this. And so both players doing well for their teams. Both their teams are top 2 teams in the league. The natural discussion is, who is better, Rabiot versus Hakan? I'm curious what the chat thinks in terms of those 2 players. What are your thoughts on who is better? Who would you want to have on your team, Rabiot or Hakan Çalhanoğlu?
I guess it depends on what. I guess it depends on what you have a need for. I think they're hard to compare because they have different functions in their respective midfields. Okay, Hakan Çalhanoğlu has transitioned to being a kind of a more deep lying playmaking midfielder. Rabiot is a player that has an engine. Okay. He's a guy that a midfielder that I've kind of been coining as box to box plus. Okay, will work box to box, but also has the ability to get in and score goals, work his way into the penalty area, get on the end of crosses and score goals. So there really hasn't been anyone in Serie A as good as what Rabiot does. Relative to his role with the team. Okay, you can talk about, and somebody say, well, Tijjani Reinders, because we talked about him earlier. Tijjani Reinders is a little bit of a different player. I think he's relied on to get into deeper positions. In fact, dare I say about Reinders that he's asked to carry responsibilities that you saw Verdi do with Mancini's Italy. Okay, maybe find more attacking positions and find higher positions to get the ball and play people in, but also to help be able to possess, building up from the back third to the middle third. So there's a lot more possession responsibility with Reinders. But let me come back to the guys we're talking about. I'd argue that Rabiot has probably been more important to Juve than Çalhanoğlu has been to Inter. That doesn't mean I think that Rabiot is better than Çalhanoğlu. I think that you have so much at Inter. Does Çalhanoğlu pull a lot of those strings? Yes, but can you get a guy with, a little less talent than Çalhanoğlu to play that role and get it done? Arguably, you could, because you have those front 2 who are so damn good. You have the play of the left wing of the wing backs. You have the back 3 and the goalkeeper who have been excellent defensively. Rabiot takes on a huge amount of Ollie's point. A huge amount of responsibility in the midfield. Locatelli is not. He's gotten better as a regista over the years. I think you can only get better as a regista playing in that system with playing games. But I think what Rabiot has done this season is probably been more valuable to Juventus than what Çalhanoğlu has done for Inter. And it's what I'll say this it is close. Okay, because Çalhanoğlu has been really damn good. They both were in our Squadra Finora. Okay, but I'm gonna just ever so slightly tip Rabiot over Çalhanoğlu as it pertains to importance to their team.
Yeah, and I think all valid points, mind you, and also the chat that has some good commentary as well. It's difficult to say, and I think what your original question is the important question. What does your team need? I think both players have been fantastic this season. They're both. Undoubtedly, they were in our Squadra Finora in the midseason. They will likely be in the end of the season. Both offer so much. They both have their qualities that the other doesn't have, but they're important for their teams. Like you said, I think Hakan has gotten to this other level that we didn't think he had. Yes, we thought he had the qualities offensively, but now he's put into this position that he's not necessarily so advanced. He can use his immense kicking ability where he can launch a rocket like nobody else. Maybe only Malinovsky and maybe one other person has a shot like him from distance. And he uses that now for passing, which is amazing. You can catch the defenses off, switch the play very easily with the accuracy and the pace that he kicks these balls and the accuracy. So he's so good there. He can track back like no other. Typically, when you look at some registas in some systems, they tend to be the hard tackling ball winner, kind of like a Darun type. He's not that, but he's very in the mold of a Benacer, where he's using his finesse and his intelligence to kind of win the plays. You put himself positionally in the right place so he can kind of stop the counterattacks. Hakan does it very well, no doubt about it. But to your point, I think he's on a team that's laden with talent. Other two midfielders with him are fantastic, and so that helps in that respect. Makes your job a little bit easier. I've seen in other teams where you had a regista playing so well, once you took those two key partners away from him, he becomes more average, right? And not to say that would happen with Hakan, but I think Hakan is, if you need a Regista type in your team, he's perfectly done there for you. He can get those set pieces. He's locked that down. He's locked the long range shot down. He's got the vision. Not the hard crunching tackles, but you have Barella if you're entered for that kind of stuff. Now looking at Rabiot, I'm with you. I think he's your box-to-box plus. He's not only crucial for Juventus, he is their best midfielder. Yes, McKennie's been having a great season, but Rabiot's been the best player there. Not to mention, he's on one of the best national teams in the world and one of the key players for that team. He's been nothing but good performances for France during the World Cup run. He was key in almost every game. He's good in the air. He can cover the balls. He can tackle. He's deceptively fast, as you mentioned. You don't think he's going that fast, but he just has paced him. He's just very slow looking and there's been other players who mentioned that. Usually we talk about that with strikers. But Rabiot is so smart, very good. When he was young, he had all this creativity. He still has that, but now he's more composed. He's more mature. He knows when to use it. And I would love to have both players on my team. I did have one player on my team at one point. But I think Rabiot, if comparing the two in terms of how, if you had to build a team from scratch, you'd probably go Rabiot just because of all the extra stuff that he does. And you mentioned, Ollie mentioned, many people in the chat have mentioned. But they're both excellent players, and it's also hard to compare them because one's a Regista, one's a box-to-box. They don't play the same positions. You swap their positions, who would do better? I don't know, right? They'll probably both be just average at that point. So, they both do their positions very well. They're both very good players. Let's stop comparing players, for God's sakes. Let's appreciate what they do, and they both are very good at their positions. And Juventus and Inter are the better for it.
Yep, agreed, 100%. So it's an interesting conversation because you can go back and forth on this all day long. You can wake up the next. I say Rabiot is more important to Juve than Hakan is to Inter, but I can wake up the next morning and find a reason for why Hakan's more important. So it's one of those things that's really, really close.
He's been so steady for Inter this season,
And it is. It's a fascinating conversation talking about these two players. No doubt about it. So let's move on. The Supercopa takes place in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. And it is a 4-team format. Okay, they've now gotten away from the just league winner versus cup winner. And I believe Napoli was the league winner and Inter was the cup winner. And now have 4 teams. So it's Napoli, Fiorentina, Inter, and Lazio. Why? Because it was an opportunity for Lega Serie A to make another 11 million euros.
Show me the money.
Yep, 11 million euros to send 4 teams down to this. So I don't know. I think by the time it's just what it probably is going to be. It's going to be one of those things where, like the NBA, they had that play in the in-season tournament. Yeah. Where at first you didn't, it's like what the hell are you doing? And then as it went on, you're kind of like, yeah, this actually was kind of a good idea because it got people interested and got people watching NBA games in November, which they otherwise probably wouldn't, because they're all entrenched into American football and some of the other things. So this might not be a bad idea, and this might take off. Well, it better, because they're going to do this. It looks, at least for the next 4 years, I think 6 years possibly.
They're getting paid either way.
Yep, and they're going to get paid either way. So it'll actually start Thursday. We'll have Napoli hosting Fiorentina. Friday we have Inter hosting Lazio. The bookmakers have the Napoli-Fiorentina game pretty close. They got Napoli as a slight plus 145 and Fiorentina as a plus 190. I think that's appropriate, considering where these teams are. I think this is going to be an exciting game. I think that, I take that back. I think these games are going to be, not that they're going to be boring, but I think these teams are going to play with caution. I don't see open games in either of these, even with the Inter-Lazio game. I think it's the teams that are going to make the critical mistakes that are going to be the ones that go out. What do you think? I'm kind of torn, but I don't think there's a whole lot of event to these games coming up.
If this was just a Supercoppa Italiana final, I would say, yeah, I think I would hedge my bet that it would be, not that I'm a betting man, I'm terrible at betting, but I would say that, it'd be more of a defensive game, very conservative. I'm hoping, this is me hoping now, that because of this format, that these teams should be a little bit more open up and not necessarily focus on the defensive and kind of just throw things at the wall and have really an offensive explosion. I can see that more than Napoli-Fiorentina matchup just because, there's opportunity there. It's going to be hard for Lazio to do it against Inter. Is it possible? Absolutely. Lazio has found ways to get nice results this season against some big teams, and I think they had a really good result against Inter this year. Didn't they beat Inter this year? So it'll be an interesting game. So. I think what are the motivations of these teams? Are they going to really invest it? I think Inter will want to win another trophy this season, so they're going to be motivated. How invested are Lazio going to be in? How invested? I think Napoli's going to be invested. I think they want to kind of save face, and any kind of trophy they can win is going to help them out. I think Fiorentina, they have bigger fish to fry in terms of European competition that they really want to focus in on. And it's just in the middle of the season that all four of these teams have another game that they're going to have in hand now that they're going to make up at some point. And so, it'll be interesting. I'm going to watch it just to see. I'm not going to be fully focused on this like I would Serie A. Just because I don't think the teams are going to be into it that much until we get to the final. But yeah, I'm hoping a lot of goals. And then the final is going to be on was it Sunday the 22nd? I guess it's Sunday 22nd. So
or Monday the 22nd.
Monday the 22nd. All right.
Yep.
All right.
I'll say Napoli narrowly beat Fiorentina. 2-1.
Okay.
I think Inter beat Lazio 2-0. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. So I think it'll be a Napoli Inter final. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I'll go with that too. I as much as I think upsets can happen, we saw Inter lose to Bologna in the Coppa Italia. I think Inter are going to be the only invested team in this. I think that they're going to take this tournament seriously. Gives them another practice run, if you will. They want to go obviously deep in Champions League, and so get your game straight now, right? Practice makes perfect, and so I think Inter are going to find a way to win. 2-0, 2-goal or 1-goal victory against Lazio, and I like your scoreline for Napoli-Fiorentina. Then go over to the finals on Sunday, which I would imagine Inter win. If Napoli wins, it's probably good for Napoli's motivation going forward. That will do them a lot if they win, but I don't think they'll be bothered if they lose that game. But I think Inter should win the cup.
Hard to not see Inter winning this thing.
Good.
They've just been so good. So, what does Inter's schedule look like with these additional games? Well, I'll take a minute here and walk through that with you, Ollie. So Inter they have Lazio, and then they have the possibility of the cup final on the 22nd, and then on the 28th they travel to Fiorentina. Mm-hmm. Okay, so 3 games in 9 days. Then February 4th they host Juventus. Then they're at Roma. Oof. And then they get to host Salernitano. So this is a brutal stretch all the way up until February 20th when they get Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. So we will see what Inter are made of here with this kind of stretch.
Mr. Bob, we were wondering the same thing. When is the winter break? There was no winter break this season. Serie A decided to go for money versus anything else, I guess, and tried to go with the English model, I guess, and kept playing throughout this time. We were waiting for our winter break. We got no break in this thing here, so I guess all the extra international games we've had to play, they said, you know what? We're going to play through Christmas. Here we go.
I think all the leagues are just I think all the leagues are just trying to get their schedules normalized here.
Bundesliga is the only one that doesn't care. They're like, we're taking a month off no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little cold in Germany in certain spots to try to play football. I can appreciate that. So. Oh man, so that's our wrap on everything. We will now let's finish with the world's most popular hashtag game. It is time, and boy, a hard act to follow after last week. But we're going to do it anyway. It's time for Who Won Calcio Twitter. Take it away, Richard.
All right. We'll start things off. First, Peter Crouch is on the board. It's an original tweet from Metro UK, and it says, hikers have taken footage of what they believe is an alien in Brazil. They said that they moved very quickly and seemed to be around 10 foot tall. Peter Crouch tweeted out saying, we were on a family holiday. Please respect our privacy at this time. not Calcio related, but hey, it's funny. So you got to put him in there. So
we enjoyed that. Okay, so moving on, Napoli-Sansone. Let's see. So we had Average Chiesa saying, my girlfriend made me a custom Monopoly game for our anniversary, and she put this beautiful place on the board. When do I get her the ring? And Napoli-Sansone just followed up and said, perfect location for the Allianz.
Next to jail. See that on the boards right next to jail.
Right next to jail. Well played, Napoli sends Sony.
Yeah. Next, nominated to us by Apex. It comes from Aziz, and it says, average day fan of Juventus. We are the best team in Italy. Napoli wins Serie A. Juventus angry. At least we have Pogba. Bruh. Pogba. At least Inter isn't better than us. Ah, che cazzo. I give up. Juventus criminal management. Torino fan.
And sleeps comfortably.
That's AI
that's
for you.
Pretty
That's
good.
That
is
good.
pretty good. Leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
All right. So Rajat 15. Okay. So Stefano Pioli. On Adli's performance, he did very well. He also found the goal, and I'm really happy for him. He is a strong and intelligent guy. I've been saying since September that he is doing great things. He deserves everything he's getting. And then there's this the lion, the witch, and the audacity of this bitch. And I think this is just into reference of like going for such a long period of time of never playing Adli, and now just kind of coming around to him. So
we've all been saying, put on Adli. He's been playing every time we saw him during the preseason and the early part of the season. We're like, he's been good. Play him. And Pioli's been like, nah, he doesn't play.
We enjoyed that.
Now he's like, I told this for the whole time. So that's good.
And we enjoyed that. Okay,
Yes.
so what do we got next here? It looks like, Aziz is back.
Average day for an AC Milan fan. We are the best in Milano. Uh-oh. 5-1 the Derby. Cry. We focus on Champions League. AC Milan out of the UCL. We focus on Serie A. Inter in Serie A.
Are you surprised by my tears, sir? This is the
funeral.
This is the background music of the Big Lebowski when.
Yes. Oh, that's a great movie too. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna follow this Aziz guy just to see more of this stuff. Look at that. You gotta follow it today. Look.
Yeah, we gotta give at Aziz _ZGH a follow. This is well played, sir.
Oh, that is good.
Okay, so moving on at Intermarcus. Let's see here. This was started with Champions League. Maldini had some skills retweeting. Saturnion13 retweeting. Reminds me of DiMarco. Intermarcus replying to him saying, Maldini said in an interview that he used to watch DiMarco highlights as a kid.
DiMarco, obviously much younger than Maldini, but that's a funny comment there. All right, Kier Palulu's next on this one, and it says, instead of getting sacked himself, he sacked one of the greatest coaches of football history. Beware the demon of Parma. Pioli just taking people out left and right and keeping his job in the process.
He followed that up by saying this guy unlocked his next club's job.
Unbeatable. Yeah, that's good too.
Pretty good. Kier Palulu has been a past winner, so
yes.
We should expect that from. Moving on, looks like Apex has made another nomination here. He is nominating, looks like Banter Era. So let's start with, it was from at Chenchionga. And he's saying, little game if you want, write for yourself how many points we will score in these games. I'll put mine in the meantime. And he says, Roma fan, it looks like Roma fan, 3 against Roma, 3 against Sheriff, lose to Bologna, draw Napoli, lose to Juve, and then draw Atalanta. I think that's what really happened.
Yeah.
And then let's see. So it was responded by, Banter Era said Fiorentina 1, Sheriff 3, 0 with Bologna, 3 Napoli, 0 Juventus, 1 Atalanta, 0 Milan. So I'm trying to figure out what this is about.
Points,
so
I guess. I don't know.
Points, okay.
Points, yeah, it's got to be points.
Okay.
Got to be points.
So it's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right. And Bob Lex, you're on the board here, buddy.
Yeah, so the original tweet was by us. We were just retweeting De Rossi, first practice with the squad. He says when he sees Lukaku's first touch.
That is good. That is real good. Yeah.
Oh, that cat. Oh, all right.
Which Aziz one wins? I think it's the Milan one.
The Milan one. I like the what was the other one? Juventus one. Yeah.
Or is it where he switches with the Torino jersey?
I like the Juventus one, yeah, where he switches to Torino jersey.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that coming. I knew the Milan thing was going to happen. The twist was in the Juventus one where he became a Torino fan and started crying.
Yeah, let me get that pulled up and let me get that up there. But that was well played. At Aziz_ZGH, congratulations. You are this week's winner of Who Won Calcio Twitter, and I got to get the right one. There it is right there. So if you've got some words for the people while I go ahead and do this, take it away.
I don't have words, but I can make some stuff up. Aziz is still watching that. That's some fun highlights there. But yeah, no, it's thanks for the chat for bringing it tonight. Always with the comments and luckily our man Ahmed didn't have to correct us too much tonight. We corrected ourselves. We learned from our mistakes. But it's been a good week. And again, I don't know how I like in these games on Tuesdays, but hey, more games than every day, the better it is. I guess it just throws us off our schedule in terms of knowing what day of the week it is. But no, it's been a good calcio here. Seems like Juventus are really starting to turn things up in terms of the attacking aspect. Vlahovic, Chiesa, and Gildi's combinations are starting to work, and they're finding ways to get goals now. So let's see if they can keep this up in the long term. And that game against Inter is getting more and more interesting. February 4th.
Yep.
Put it on your calendar. It's gonna be must-see TV. Could be the league decider at that point.
Yep,
Someone
for
will be
sure.
first place at that point.
For sure. But in the meantime, we will have a small sampling of Serie A games next weekend, largely due to the Coppa Italia, Super Coppa. On Saturday, we got Roma hosting Verona. Milan travel to Udinese. Always has been a tricky fixture for them. And then you get into Sunday, and there are 4 matches. Yes, that's correct. Frosinone hosting Cagliari in what is a potential relegation 6-pointer. This time, if Cagliari win this game, EDF has to be out. Okay,
Yeah.
This is the time. I'm gonna do this until
I think
EDF
loser
is
that
out.
game gets fired, maybe.
Yeah, could be. Ranieri's made it respectable.
No,
at
I
Cagliari.
think so too. But
Empoli, Monza, Salernitana hosting Genoa, big game there. People in Zaghi. Let's see if they are burned out from all of these late defeats, or if they galvanize and get it going. And then it's wrapped up with Juventus traveling to Lecce. Not easy, but with the way Lecce have been scoring, you have to be encouraged. Or not Lecce, with the way Juventus has been scoring. As a Juve fan, you have to be encouraged. So we'll put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down. First of all, shout out to the chat. You guys are awesome as always. Yeah. I don't think any Calcio podcast can boast a better chat than ours.
Yeah, that's right. The guys are awesome.
They're knowledgeable.
Creme de la creme.
Yeah, and they're knowledgeable too.
Yeah.
They contribute. So appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys very, very much. If you are watching this for the first time, like what you saw, drop a like. That helps us out. Hit that notification bell so you can be advised and get the heads up when we go live. It's generally Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. And then most importantly, subscribe so that you can go back and watch previous episodes and, troll us on the social media streets and say, hey, back then you said this and it's not working and things like that. So
hold us accountable.
Yeah, hold us accountable like Ahmed does. So
give us our flowers when we deserve it. No.
yeah. Praise us when it's happening. And then if you see something funny that's Calcio related on Twitter, hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter, go ahead and nominate it. I do say please keep it clean. Don't be vulgar. Don't have anything offensive. We won't read it.
Exactly.
And the social media platform at Serie A Sit Down on Twitter. On Instagram. You can also check us out on Facebook. I'm at FTC_21. Richard is at
R_KHARMAN.
Wonderful. And we have as far as the podcast go, we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there are podcasts, you can find Serie A Sit Down. Should give a shout out to World Football Index as well, the mothership. Plenty of other podcasts if you are just a world football junkie and like other leagues. In addition to Serie A, The one time Richard did this, he said, well, if you don't like Serie A that much, there's other things. That's how he promoted.
There's the Bundesliga.
If you enjoy, I know you enjoy Serie A, but you probably enjoy other leagues. Check out worldfootballindex.com. There's probably a podcast going on talking about your league. So
Yes.
Officially the countdown, 10 away from 300, as Dominic says.
Yeah. We got to do something good.
But let's get to 291 first, and that'll go on next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect. Baby steps.
All right. Baby steps. We will get there. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Hope you were enlightened about all things Serie A from Richard and I. We appreciate you, and see you next week. And as always, make sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.
Sul fondo mette in mezzo l'aggancia di Lorenzo.